to the Leo Training Podcast with Joe DeLeo. You'll hear in-depth interviews and tips from world-class athletes, coaches, and industry-leading experts to help you train smarter and improve at what you love to do. Train smarter, get stronger, move better, race faster. Here's your host, Joe DeLeo.
We're back with episode 41 of the Leo Training Podcast. This week's guest is StrongFirst Team Leader Danny Sawaya. Danny has been a professional in the fitness and nutrition field for 17 years. After earning a Bachelor's of Science in Nutritional Sciences from the University of Arizona, he conducted research and taught nutritional sciences at the university. He is a StrongFirst Team Leader as well as a certified strength and conditioning specialist through the National Strength and Conditioning Association. Danny underwent all of his Russian kettlebell training with Pavel Tsatsouline, the man who brought kettlebell training to the United States. Danny has worked with strength coaching staff of the San Diego Padres and Arizona Diamondbacks, teaching proper kettlebell form and technique. He has also had the privilege of being the strength coach to Canadian Olympic mountain biker and Pan Am gold medalist Emily Batty. He has also worked with USA Olympic team mountain biker Chloe Woodruff. Danny is the NASA Powerlifting National Record holder for Submasters 181-pound weight class. He has also broadened his athletic endeavors to the endurance sports and is currently training for the Oceanside 70.3 half IronMan in April 2017. Danny and I spend the majority of this interview discussing two main topics. The first is identifying and building the core values of your gym and how you want to communicate and teach these principles to your students. The second has to do with Danny's journey from being a competitive powerlifter to being a triathlete. Danny provides an amazing insight into his experiences along this journey and all of the change and transformation that he has undergone. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode. Danny Sawaya, welcome to the Leo Training Podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time this morning to come onto the show and offer your experience and wisdom with the strength and conditioning and endurance communities.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. This is great.
Yeah, I'm very excited. You and I actually first met just over a year ago at the StrongFirst Level 1 Kettlebell certification at Achieve Fitness in Somerville, Massachusetts. So it's pretty cool to see how far things have come in just over a year.
Yeah, it's been awesome. It's been a great year.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so we've got a really, really cool show in store for the audience. And you actually recently authored a blog article that was talking about the transition from powerlifting to endurance sports. And so that kind of set the stage for this show. But before we get into that, I want you to take a couple minutes, and I would love for you to introduce yourself to the audience. Tell them about your background, your work in StrongFirst leadership, your gym in Tucson, Arizona, and your career and everything.
All right. I've been in the industry for I graduated college back in 98, 97, and with a degree in nutrition, and loved it. Did a lot of postgraduate research work, worked in like a metabolic lab, doing DEXA scans back when the DEXA scan was like this newest thing out there, and body composition and all this fun stuff. So I really enjoyed it. But after a while, I just realized I didn't want to sit in the research setting. So I kind of just went out, did some other things for a year or two, and worked sales in Silicon Valley and all that stuff, and came back to Tucson like 30 pounds overweight and just miserable. So I got a job in a gym, literally checking people at the front desk, and just started like getting back with what I love to do, and became a trainer. And just really, it's funny. I remember when I graduated college, I was working on a PhD, and everyone was telling me, "You're going to work in a gym with your degree in nutrition and health?" I'm like, "No, I'm going to college. Why would I work in a gym?"
Right.
And kind of funny how things turn out. And so that started my journey and just coaching people and working with them to get healthier and stronger. And, I think we all kind of have this idea of what it's going to be. And when you're broke as a trainer in the beginning, it's kind of funny, how things work out. And fast forward 17 years later, I've got my strength and conditioning gym, and have the CSCS and all that other fun stuff, and I have a staff of 9 trainers now that work for me and work with me, and it's been awesome. It's been an amazing experience. And I think we'll probably talk about later, but when I first started as a trainer, of course, everyone wants to train athletes and wants to train these things, and fast forward 17 years later, I had the ability to train some world-class athletes in the last year or two, and it's been really awesome. It's been a great thing for me. It's been awesome.
That's outstanding. Congratulations. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So awesome. Thank you for kind of prepping and setting the stage there. So I mentioned at the beginning there, you recently authored this blog article that kind of caught my attention, and I thought this is really a great topic because they're sort of like, in some ways, polar opposite worlds. They don't really kind of like talk to each other, right? So we have, kind of, we'll say on the left here, we have powerlifting, and then on the right, we have kind of endurance sports. Yeah. So before we get into that transition, why don't you just kind of set the stage? What is powerlifting? What does it involve? Okay. And then talk about, some of the training you've done for that and some of the numbers you were putting up. And then what made you decide to kind of currently the endeavor you're pursuing of doing some triathlon racing?
Sure. Well, powerlifting, the sport of powerlifting is the 1 rep max squat, then bench press, and then a deadlift. So you pick up the weight from the ground and set it back down. The squat, you unrack the weight, you walk it out, squat with your hips below parallel, so your butt has to go below your knees. And then you stand up with the weight and rack it back up. And the bench press is, kind of what everyone thinks the bench press is. Except you have to pause on your chest with it. And, I was never a world-class power lifter, but I was a guy that years ago lifted a lot when I was in my 20s and injured myself training very stupid, like a lot of 20-year-olds. And really stopped doing the sport, stopped really lifting heavy weights for years. I worked out and trained, but I had such a bad back in my 20s and 30s, I never thought I'd be lifting or squatting a weight again. And in my 30s, I started feeling better. I started learning a lot of stuff with the FMS, the functional movement screen, and practicing that, and StrongFirst and the kettlebell stuff, and rehabbed my body to where, like, wow, I can lift again. This is kind of cool. I'm getting stronger. It's not just lifting to lift weights. And it just sparked a whole thing in me in my 30s, my early 30s. To start with powerlifting again. And for a guy that the orthopedic surgeon told me I would never put a bar on my back again when I was 29, 30 years old. Fast forward last year at 40 years old, I squatted 551 in competition, bench pressed 352, and I deadlifted, I think 530 or 540 pounds. And so I was happy as a 40-year-old man putting up numbers that I couldn't put up in my 20s. I was very pleased with that.
That's incredible. That's awesome.
Yeah, you saw me last year, right when I was training for that big meet. When I hit those numbers, I was a lot heavier than I am right now, and I enjoyed it. I really, really, really did. It was for the first time in years. I felt like my training sessions weren't just exercise. I got to this point, like in my 20s and 30s, where I was just training to not be overweight. I was kind of chubby as a kid, so I wanted to look good and feel shape and be healthy. And it was kind of like I lost the purpose of training. It's like I didn't want a big bench press. I didn't want to do this. I felt like I was hurting myself. And so once I learned, really how to lift the right way with the right mentality and not hurting myself, powerlifting gave me a awesome way to focus and train with a purpose each training session, and you just kind of build up. And the funny thing was when I started deadlifting, a few years back, I could barely deadlift 300 pounds. I'm watching videos of 115 pound, Russian girls out deadlifting me, and it was just humbling. And I think there are probably still some 115 pound Russian girls that can out deadlift me now. But it was amazing. And so, I started I could barely squat 225. And so I put 300 pounds on my squat. People are like, how do you do that? Well, I think I had a lot of genetic potential to do some of that stuff, but it was just really little bits of time where I just got stronger little by little, month after month, year after year of just training smart. And, it propelled me to this whole thing with, lifting the weight that I did last year. And I could talk forever about just the philosophy that got me there, but I'll just say it was always lifting fast. It was, and smart. Like I never grinded out heavy weights and beat myself up. So many times people think, you lift this weight and it was hard on my body. Don't get me wrong. I'll get into that. But I didn't kill myself with all of my training for it. It was just small gains over a long period of time added up to those numbers. And so, I'm really grateful that I got that philosophy when I started back up. And I'm really happy to say that in the last 5-6 years, powerlifting, I never injured myself lifting, like nothing serious, like, some little aches and pains and stiffnesses, but it was great. So that's where I got to the level with last year. I coach, I own my gym also has Tucson Barbell Club in it. I have a gym at the Barbell Club and we do Olympic lifting. So you want me to talk about the transition or?
No, that's great so far. Yeah, for sure. I just like one comment I would make is I remember last year you taught for the kettlebell certification, StrongFirst Level 1. You did the military press, and like you said, this was right during your powerlifting kind of the intense period during your powerlifting training. And I remember you were talking about the cues and the coaching and everything, and just up and down, just pressing the beast like effortlessly. And I'm like watching this and I'm just standing there and I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, this is incredible. Just the fluidity and smoothness of it was probably the most impressive thing. Like, yes, the weight of course is impressive, but it was the control that you had, right? It was like never, like you said, you weren't, even then for that, you weren't grinding it. It was just, okay, boom, get tight, press, and then come down. And I think you did like 3 or 4 reps in a row. And I was like, oh my God. Yeah. So that was like, that like really, that really stuck out in me because I remember you had shared, now that I think of it, I remember you had shared when you went for your level 2, going into your level 2, I think you had spoken to the participants, the attendees at the certification that you were actually had to try to cut some weight, I think. Is that right? Am I remembering correctly? Yeah.
It was crazy. I went to level 2 like 2011 or 2010. I forget. It was 2010 or 2011. And I dropped down to 180 pounds so I could press the 36 kilogram bell, I think. Maybe it was the 40. I don't even think. Yeah, maybe it was the 40. And it was close. And after that cert, that's what made me, that was a big turning point for me because I was like, I realized I was pretty underpowered in certain areas and that's right around the time I started powerlifting again. And yeah, it was like one of those things like where I was not strong. Like people look at me like, wow, man, you squat a lot. That's really awesome. But I mean, I've struggled with strength and it was something I had to really put my focus on. And like when you talk about with the fluidity of that press, a big thing for that with me was I always lift with speed in mind. Yeah, I always accelerate through my lifts. So I always train lighter than what I can lift. I don't grind out ugly reps in training. It's always a joke when I squat, it looks like the bar is going to pop off my back. It's like explosive with the weight, but it's controlled. It's controlled movement. So I'm a big fan of lifting with speed and acceleration. And if the weight starts to get grindy or you're just grinding out ugly reps, training session's over. I don't tax my nervous system. So that day when I pressed that beast, it's a representation of all the training I did. That's how I lift. So when I couldn't lift the 80 pounder, I was doing a lot of training with the 28 kilogram or those lighter weights, making sure I could accelerate and groove the pattern correctly with the lighter weights. So.
No, that's actually really good advice, and that's something that resonated with me because the level 2 is something I'm going to be pursuing in the next year. And even going to level 1, the press was, the thing that I struggled with the most, like preparing for in the training. And I just remember, your story when you shared it really resonated with me, because I'm like, wow, I'm like the ease and control which you demonstrated. I was like, I want to get to that point. That's what I want to have. So thank you for sharing that, because that is something that I will definitely be trying to integrate into my own practice and training.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. If you need any help, let me know.
Cool. Yeah, I'll be asking some questions afterwards. But yes, okay, back on to tangent aside, back on track. So, okay, awesome year. You're tearing it up, kicking ass last year, powerlifting. And then what was the sort of aha epiphany moment? You're like, I think I'm going to do some triathlon endurance sports.
Man, it's funny. I always get joked at with my gym, because I'll tell one of my training partners named Sergio. We train for powerlifting together and train for a lot of stuff. And I'm always like, hey, Serge, I have an idea. And he's always like, no, stop it with your idea. Because I come up with some crazy ideas. I think my gym was a crazy idea, back in the day. So I come up with these really nutty ideas. But what really happened was I got to this point with powerlifting where every meet I would lift. And I loved it. And I remember squatting 400 pounds for the first time, 350 for the first time. And I remember going, I want 400 pounds. And then I was like, great. And I got 400. I'm like, I want 420 at my next meet. And I got 420. And I got hungrier, and I kept getting hungry. And like every workout was looking forward to the next time I can lift with a little more speed or a little more weight or a little more volume with that weight. And I got excited about training all the time for years. And last year, after I remember training for this big meet, and I squatted like 530 in one meet, and I was like, okay, I'm going for 550 to 560 the next meet. And when I started hitting those bigger numbers, I just started feeling like, wow, this is, there's a saying, it says it's all easy till it gets heavy. Well, that started getting heavy for me. Nothing felt heavy up to that point. And I just noticed that it was starting to take a toll on my body a little bit more than I want to. I think with any sport that happens. I've talked to elite triathletes and runners that you just get to a point where to take it to that next level, you have to make certain sacrifices. And I got to this point where, yeah, there are guys who can squat a whole heck lot more than me, 700 pounds, 800 pounds. I got to the point where 550, I was doing walkouts one day on my training cycle as I was peaking, and I was walking out about 615 pounds on my back, and I'm just holding it underneath, and I'm just holding this weight and just feeling the weight and then walking it back in. I wouldn't squat it, and I just had bruises on my back. And I wake up the next morning, and it was like everything hurt. My toes hurt. I mean, everything in my body. And it just came to the point where I'm a father. I have a beautiful daughter and a wife at home. I own a business with just really thriving business, and the training was just really depleting me to the point. And I got to the point where, do I want to take it to that elite level where right around the corner I would be hitting an elite squat and some elite lifts? And I just, after I got done with that meet, I said, I'm going to take a couple months off and kind of just refocus and maybe just do some fun running and just do some stuff. Because I felt I was so focused on the strength work. I mean, I couldn't even run really. I was a little heavier than I should have been. That was just because of my diet wasn't tuned in, and I just wanted to lift heavy, and got a little sloppy with my diet. But it was just one of those things like where I was just worn out. And after taking a few months off, I just got some perspective that, I need to take a little bit more time off. I didn't feel like it was the best for my health. And to get to that, could I have gotten to maybe some elite totals? Yes. I really firmly believe I could have. But it came to the point of like where, and I wrote some of these other blogs I've written about wanting, is like, I didn't want to do the work to get there because it was going to cost me too much with my health, family life, work life. And I wasn't willing to focus all of my attention on getting to a number, because any really awesome power lifter is going to tell you they don't make really any money off being an awesome power lifter either. Right. And so the cost just didn't, work out. So I kind of got into this thing where I wanted to just do, just wanted to feel more balanced. It was just, when you saw me last year, I was about 212 pounds at the SFG. People kept calling me Big Danny. Big Danny. I'm like, I'm 5'6". How am I big? And I looked in the mirror, like I saw a picture on the StrongFirst Facebook page of me, and I'm like, wow, it's pretty big. Now I'm weighing about 185 right now, so it's a big difference.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just started just kind of running a little bit, and I could barely run. It was humiliating. I ran a mile at Joe, and I was just sucking wind, and I'm like, this is unacceptable. I started rowing and feeling great rowing, and I got some instruction. I hired a coach who helped me learn how to row without, hurting my back and being stupid with it. And it was great. So I just started doing that, started feeling better and lifting a couple days a week. And it just all of a sudden developed into this thing that's now endurance. So I'm the type of person that really wants to train for a goal and always have a purpose. Like I found with powerlifting, and I started just taking like little steps to kind of see, well, what's out there? What can I do? And so that's what happened. I just started feeling better with a little bit more endurance in my life and started dabbling with it more. And all of a sudden I started looking for some outlets to train and become better at it. And I did a half marathon in June. And from there, before the half marathon was even over, I was in my hotel room in San Diego, and I'm like, this is going to be over this weekend. I said, I need to come up with something else. And someone said, why don't you do a full marathon? And I said, I have no interest in doing a full marathon. And I said, I'm going to do triathlon. That was the decision. I just made it in the hotel room and started looking up triathlons that night in the hotel room. Before I even did the half marathon, it started researching which ones I was going to do. So that's kind of what happened. But it came out of a thing of like I pushed one side so hard that I knew I needed more balance. And so this has really helped me find the balance a lot more by training my endurance and still keeping a strength base. And I'm not killing myself with the endurance work right now. So that's really good. I feel really, really good right now.
That is awesome. Totally awesome. I can 100% appreciate everything that you just shared. I can agree with and see everything because I came from the opposite end of the spectrum, right? The endurance side. So you were pushing strength for a number of years very hard. I was pushing endurance for a number of years very hard. So I remember when I got an FMS screen done about probably 4 or 5 years ago now, like I couldn't do the trunk stability push-up. Like I was asymmetrical on the active straight leg raise, asymmetrical on the shoulder mobility, right? And, it was, I'm going to go for a row or get on the air. You just hop on the machine and you just take it easy for the first couple minutes and you get in there was no warm up. There was no cool down. There was no mobility work, none of that. And you do that for 10, 15 years and it compounds. It's like compounding interest, but it's like negative. And it racks up and your body takes a punishment. And I actually stepped back for probably the last after I did a half Ironman, and then the end of the summer I did a Olympic distance triathlon the following year after I was done kind of rowing. I haven't done any endurance events, running, rowing related, except for like an alumni race here or there, and have focused solely on strength because it was such a foundational piece that we didn't really lift when I was in college. We just, we really focused primarily on the endurance side of the sport. So I was doing a lot of endurance work and high intensity work and had no foundational strength underneath. And so I could generate, I was like, the quintessential, fitness on top of dysfunction. Like, man, you want some power output for an hour on the ergometer? Boom, I can do that. You want like a really high intensity effort for like 5 minutes or, for 1,000 meters, for rowing? Boom, I can do that. But like you ask me to do like push-ups and be able to like control my body and not rotate or like have good glute contraction like while I'm doing it? Nope. So it's like, it's exactly what you said. It was, okay, let's stop. Let's hit the pause button here and let's be mature about this and realize that where do I want to be when I'm like 60? And like, do I want to be able to like move well? And like, when I have a family and stuff and like be able to play with my kids and be functional and stuff. And I knew the road I was going down. I wasn't going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And it was what you shared reminded me of a quote one of my mentors said to me, and he goes, "There is nothing healthy about training at any elite level."
Right.
Because it is you are pushing the body and the mind to the limits. Right? And it's a cost. I mean, if you look at almost across the board, injury is very, very typical at that end. And I remember something Dr. McGill had shared with me. They have that the U-shaped curve, like an upside down U. So at the beginning of the U, you have your kind of general population. They're going to be experiencing injuries, and then you have the people in the middle who are strong and fit, and they're doing some stuff and taking care of their bodies. And then you have sort of the elite end, and both those ends are bumping up against that line of getting injured all the time. So,
yeah, and health concerns and everything. You're right. I wrote a blog on that. It's called Strength, Endurance, and Health. And I actually made my own type of bell-shaped curves along those same principles. I did it with health and being elite on either side, and also like when someone's so strong on one side and someone's so endurance on the other side, and really made those correlations on my blog, because that's exactly what I was feeling. I write the whole piece on why I shifted. But you're right. It turns into a thing like, if we're making millions of dollars a year and we're Michael Jordan, it's a little different.
Yeah, that's right. At
the end of the day, we have other responsibilities in life. So yeah,
absolutely.
My coach, I have her name's Gail Levesque, and she's coaching me on my triathlon stuff right now, and I love it. She emailed me today, and she's, kind of scale back and this and that. And I'm like, oh, I still feel good. And she's like, and she said, Danny, I'm just as concerned. She goes, I'm trying to keep you healthy. And I loved it because I need that. And she's like, and if you told me you want to do a full IronMan next week or next month or in next year, she goes, unless you sold that gym and you don't have any other responsibilities, she goes, I wouldn't want you to do it. Like, it's just right now, let's keep you healthy. You have other things in your life that are more important than this. And I'm really grateful to have someone in my life like that.
That's awesome, man. That's great. That's so cool. Well, thank you for sharing that and driving home that message, because I think that's lost a lot. It's like we get so gung-ho about hitting a number or a split on a rowing machine or whatever it is, whatever the variable is, and you kind of lose sight of the fact that like this is supposed to increase or help the quality of life, not take away from it.
Right.
So, all right. So back on track. Okay. So now did that half marathon. Now you're like, all right, I'm chomping at the bit. It's time to do some triathlon. So your first one is next weekend.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So first question in regards to this is, what's the journey been like up until this point? Now you got 3 disciplines in addition to the strength training. You got, swim, bike, and run. All right. So what's that been like?
Very expensive.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah, thank God I own a gym, and this stuff is all a write-off for me. It's wonderful. It's wonderful to have a nice big write-off with this stuff. But yeah, I bought a decent bike, and like I have clients that are cyclists, and their wheels are more expensive than my bike, and I thought my bike was expensive. I spent a couple $1,000 on this bike. Yeah, my wheels are $3,500. I'm like, what? So it's been great. The first thing was I'm really huge on getting instruction as a coach. So I hired a swimming coach right away. I did a couple laps in a pool, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna need some help here because I don't want to just barely. Even though I'm not trying to be elite or be on the, thinking I'm going to be on the podium, at least on this one. I'm doing this to compete with myself, and I wanted to make sure like I'm not just barely surviving a swim. I want to feel like I've done my well prepared. So I hired a swimming instructor. It was awesome. I mean, because I really didn't know what the hell I was doing. So it really helped out. And I did swimming lessons every 5 days. And it was great. Did that for a couple months and really grateful for that. And I started I didn't hire a coach right away. I just started for the triathlon. I just started running a little bit, swimming a little bit, cycling a little bit, just getting my feet wet. And it was just kind of manipulating the volumes, short runs and long runs, doing everything a couple times a week. And I felt good. I felt really solid with it. And when I started, again, like I told you with the half marathon, before the half marathon was even done, I knew I needed to have something else. So when I started saying I want to do a triathlon, I knew that, I found this sprint that I was like, oh, that's coming up. And I pretty much said, where's the next Ironman? And it's going to be somewhere near here. And there's one in Phoenix, not too far from me. But I said, that's too close. I don't want to kill myself. And so I just kind of set the date next April for an Ironman and hired a coach. And she's helped me map out a really awesome training plan to kind of make sure that I'm, working enough swimming and running and cycling into my week without destroying my body, and working out 6 days on, 1 day off, but at volumes that aren't beating me up. And so it's been great learning all this stuff. It's helped me become such a better coach too. Can't stress to you, when I was in that pool feeling like I was about to doggy paddle halfway through a 50-meter swim, having this swimming coach talk to me and encourage me and make me feel like I wasn't a complete failure, but be patient with me, made me understand the first time I put a barbell in someone's hand or kettlebell in someone's hand, what's going through their head. And it made me so much more compassionate towards people when they walk into my gym. And so really grateful. The experience has helped me grow as a person too, not just a better athlete, just a better person. So yeah, I've just been able to incorporate them in, and been really grateful for the experience so far. I can't stress enough how excited I am. So I have my first one this next Sunday, so the 18th of September, and then I have a Olympic at the end of October, and then the 70.3 next April. So we'll see how it goes.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm pumped for you. You're gonna have a blast, and I totally can echo those sentiments, because I remember when I got in the pool and the swimming coach was there. He's like, oh, do you swim? I was like, yeah, I grew up near the ocean. I know what I'm doing. He's like, oh, okay. So I take off, I get to the end, I'm dying of breath, 25 meters. I turn back, I get to the wall. He's just just grab the wall. You're just going to kick for the rest of practice. And then you're just going to work on breathing to both sides. And it was just the absolute basics and fundamentals from the ground up. And over the span of 6 months, put together a decent swimming stroke. But yeah, it's humbling because you're a beginner all over again. And sometimes when you are in a certain area, you forget what that feeling's like.
Yeah. And
then you remember, and it's oh man, and absolutely, because it really makes you remember to be patient and understanding with people, and it can be very intimidating and scary, especially when you walk into a gym and it's you see the dark heavy kettlebell or the barbell, and it's what am I doing here?
Yeah. It's funny, but I'm really glad. I'm grateful. It's helped me. Being a beginner again at anything is awesome, and I'm embracing it. So I'm enjoying the heck out of it. So,
cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be keeping an eye out and following your results and stuff.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, you got it. Of course. Okay. So anything else on the triathlon front you want to share in terms of making the switch to powerlifting from powerlifting to endurance sports, in terms of how your body's responded, or maybe advice or / recommendations to people that might try to do this in the future?
Well, I would say that the biggest thing for me is really understanding my priorities as a powerlifter. It's been hard. I've really had to cut back my strength training work, right? There's only so much room for everything. My ego wants one thing. And when, I have clients now that can out bench press me. All right. And, and that's never been the case for me. And they're not benching that much, my things have gone down. But I'm okay. I've decided to keep a baseline of strength. So I lift 1 day a week. I hit a squat and a bench, or squat and a press day, and a lot of pulling in my strength work. And I do 1 day a week, and it's at numbers of less than 50% of my all-time maxes, just doing some rep work and keeping it explosive and keeping my body working. But yeah, not feeling I guess that's a big thing. If someone wants to go from strength to endurance, you just have to kind of put your ego aside and say, you know, I'm okay with not being as strong as I was, but I'm utilizing my strength in other ways. So I'm expressing my strength in other ways. And that's one thing my swimming coach said. He goes, I've never seen someone tear through the water like this. He goes, it's amazing to see how you just can push your body through that water with all the strength you have. So I've been able to find a way to use my strength in a lot of other ways, and it's been very beneficial for me, without a doubt, been very beneficial. But now I just have to maintain a very low level of it and really focus on what I want to do right now and really embrace this new sport. And my body's changed. I've lost 30 pounds. I went from like 212 to like 185 right now, and I'll probably lose more as the training goes on. But also, you know, getting up, when I was powerlifting, I couldn't powerlift at 5 a.m. And now that I'm doing this, I'm up at 4 a.m. every day, and I'm getting my runs in. And in Arizona, you have to get up really early in the summertime to run. It's by 6 o'clock in the morning, it's already 90 degrees or 100 degrees. So we're up at, you know, and my body's just changed, and my mental attitude changed. The endurance work has definitely decreased my stress levels. And because I'm not training like an idiot, keeping my heart rate low, being patient with that process, it's been great. And I would just speak to anyone on the endurance side that wants to, you know, get more strength in their life, that, you know, it's understand there are going to be some things we're going to give up to get where we want to go, but that, you know, as long as, you know, we find the balance of everything, that's the most important aspect of it. And I've been able to balance strength, balance endurance, more importantly, balance my family and my work life into this whole thing, which is, I think, the most important thing for me, is to make sure that I'm able to do a lot of things really well, rather than just focusing and losing a lot of stuff in my life, like mobility or family time.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's huge. Yeah. Kudos to you for maintaining the balance between all those things, because that's a lot of different hats you're wearing there.
Yeah, it is. But, you know, it's part of the fun part of the challenge, right?
That's right. That's right. Awesome. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit.
Okay.
And then let's talk about your gym and some of the core values of that gym, and, you know, some of the things that wisdom or recommendations you could impart to other, you know, gym owners when they're identifying that piece into their gym, the brand.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you, owning my gym, I mean, this could be a whole nother podcast, I'm sure. I have a lot of passion for business and all this other stuff that I've done. And I'm really, I opened up this gym, and people were like, you know, it's not CrossFit, it's not LA Fitness, it's not anything. And it was just a little school of strength, this 1,800 square foot gym. It's actually 1,000 square foot of gym floor. That's all I had. The rest was storage space I didn't need, but it's all I could afford. And it was just me training in the park with a couple ladies at the time. I quit my job with a 4-month-old baby at home, and my wife was working part-time, and I quit a good paying job to follow this, and literally with no clients. And fast forward, we went from 1,000 square foot gym floor to 6,000 square foot gym floor right now, and a nice sized facility. And, you know, it was just started with this love and this passion for strength and wanting to spread a totally different message to people on training. And it's been huge for us, and it's just grown. I mean, we went from a few members to, you know, hundreds of members now, and I'm really grateful for it. But the biggest thing I've realized over the years, stress started taking over. The business started growing. You know, you lose some staff, things happen, life happens. And I started feeling a little disconnected from my gym, and started feeling a little, you know, what's going on? Like, what's happening? And I had to really reconnect to my core values again of why I'm doing this in the first place. So as a gym owner, I mean, I have a whole nother perspective of why am I even doing this? And we have like what makes it work. And we have a core values at our gym, and they're found like on our Facebook page. If you go to like Evolution Fitness Tucson, I mean, they're our banner on our page, and we live everything by 'em. My staff and myself. Every staff meeting starts with our core values, and it's strive for continual growth and knowledge in ourselves. And it can be personally, spiritually, educationally. We're always trying to be better people, better trainers, and always learning more about ourselves and our industry. The next core value we have is serve others with a passion. I mean, we have to be fired up and want to wow the heck out of our customers. And a lot of our long-term members just love us for that. We don't do everything perfectly, but I'll tell you, whenever we're not doing this part or someone's not doing it, we all feel it. And that's the big thing of the core value. If you're feeling like something's off, you have to be able to go back to those core values. And it's usually one of those core values isn't being met. I have core values for my business and core values for my life, and that's always a truth. And then we always want to create create a community and build a community at our gym. Give an experience to our members. Anyone can go to a Zumba class somewhere or go to another gym for a lot less than we are. And so if we're not creating an experience, if you're not creating a community and experience for people to come to, then really there's no difference between you and anyone else. I mean, so all those things I think are super important for a gym owner or even a trainer, anyone in this industry. And that's what, everyone may have a different value system, but that's something for us. We start every meeting and every team member, every one of our team has to kind of explain how these core values have either played out in their life or with their clients. And that's how we start off every meeting, and it's who we are.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Yeah. So what are some of the characteristics or elements you try to make sure are always inherent in the experience for the clients or attendees of classes?
That we always have a big focus on instruction, and first off, we have to care. They know we care, and if anytime someone doesn't feel like we care, we're not doing it right. So giving that personal touch to people, letting them know that we understand what's going on with them and that we're here to help, and also that we're there to instruct and coach. We have people who've gone to other gyms that could be similar to us, and they've never been taught the kettlebell swing the way we teach it. Like, oh wow, the way we break things down, the way we instruct, the way we are hands-on. So people in our group training classes, we always try to say we try to give that personal one-on-one attention, even if you're in a group. So if we see someone struggling, that we're there to kind of say, no, let's focus on this, and trying to focus on what they're doing right rather than just criticizing them the whole time, but letting them know what they're doing right and making sure they know that we really care and we're doing this because we want them to be better. And I always feel that is one of the things that always separates us and what people always tell us why they love us so much. And that's a standard I've had since the day I opened. I don't coach much anymore. Less than 9 sessions a week now. I don't do any of our classes anymore. A lot of awesome trainers on our staff that does it. But that I would say is hands down what makes us different.
Very cool. That's awesome. I love the focus and the driving force on the quality of individual instruction, regardless of when you're scaling up to a group size setting.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's important. And if I'm walking around the gym and I see someone doing a swing wrong, it's a little bit of a bigger class, I'll go in there and help out our instructors. If we see something, we'll jump in, even if they're not, training at that time, but there's a class going on, there's a newbie and the instructor's working with someone else. We just want people to do it right and be smart. Even we're talking about rowing, and I think we'll talk about that in a second, but I'm a stickler making sure people are rowing right. You're not allowed to be in my rowing class just killing yourself with everything bending wrong at the wrong time. I cuss a lot in my classes, and I'll be respectful of the audience and not, but I'll tell my staff, my clients, I'm like, guys, if you just want to do mindless exercise, you don't need to be spending the money here. Focus on what you're doing. And I talk to them, I'm like, get your head out of your ears, and I want you to just focus on what you're doing. Look at the different points when you're rowing, or even rowing. People don't want to think about rowing as a skill, and it's such a skill, and people use it to just get their heart rate up. And I say, if you just want to get your heart rate up, just go over in the corner and do burpees. You don't need to wasting your time, doing something, stuff. And even burpees, you should have good form with, right? So it's inherent with who I am. It's my standard. It's my core value, and I expect it. So very important. I get really passionate about that.
No, man. I'm the same way. I love that. And it's funny because when that's your approach or the mindset, that's exactly the type of people you're going to attract. Right. It's like they're either going to be like, that's not my cup of tea, or those are going to be the people that become students. And it's definitely, I'll be the first to say it's not for everybody. Some people want to, and there's, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's just not not what I prefer, and it's not the way I like to teach or coach. But the idea of mindless exercise, you're just going through the motion. Like, what are you getting out of that? Right. I just don't see, how is that fun?
Well, they get an adrenaline hit. They get the epinephrine, they get the endorphin kick, all those great things. There's a benefit, but that's not what we're about. I mean, and I don't feel like you should be paying someone $100 and something dollars a month for group training, or a couple $100 a month for group training, or $100 a session for a trainer. My daughter can put me through a 6-year-old daughter can put me through a workout that makes me want to throw up. It doesn't mean it's right?
Right. Yeah. No. And to your point about the rowing, to me, that's so important, because like you said, it is a skill. And that's probably one of the biggest things I've learned from the curriculum at StrongFirst and strength training overall, is that it's very skill driven. And that's not how I kind of approached rowing when I was a collegiate athlete. And now I do a lot less. When I am endurance training, I focus much more, all the time it's on technique. And it's, my heart rate will get where, I want it to. And when I'm doing intensity work, I don't worry so much about that. But 90+% of the time, I'm focused on my technique and form, because I didn't do it for years. You know what I mean? And then you ingrain these bad habits. And there is, I like to think that there's strength in proper technique and form. You're becoming much more biomechanically efficient and using your body. It's safer. Right. Especially on the ergometer, you are actually stressing the low back way more than the rowing shell on the water. So the load and the forces placed on the body are completely different. You need way greater mobility and control through the thoracic spine, versus on the water, you need greater ankle dorsiflexion, knee and hip flexion, right? So it's like the demands placed on the body are totally, totally different. And you're only moving in the sagittal plane. On the ergometer, you're moving in all 3 planes on the water. So it's so important. And final point I'll make on that is learning how to properly deadlift over the last couple of years, because of, some of my mentors and StrongFirst. That's completely changed the way I teach the rowing stroke, because it's supposed to be you need to hang off of the oar handle, off of the fingertips, off of the skeletal system, and push with the legs from the feet, from the ground up. And then as the legs are coming flat, you're extending fully through the knee and the hip. Then you're going to swing the shoulders over and draw the arms in. And, for years it was, you just get from catch to finish, any way you can. And I'm more concerned about how much power you can generate, right? Like, show me how much output you can do, right? Regardless of if it's biomechanically efficient or not, which doesn't always translate from the ergometer to moving a boat the fastest, right? So that's a big point, to your point, that if it's biomechanically inefficient on the ergometer, it's not going to translate to boat speed on the water.
Right. Okay. I got that.
All right. Yeah. Sorry. I can be a little long-winded at times.
That's awesome. Yeah, me too. That's my thing.
So yeah, that's awesome, man. I think that's so cool. And, that's something I definitely picked up on when you were teaching at the certification and throughout this interview and stuff, is like how passionate you are, and how important the quality of instruction is that you drive home to your clients and stuff. And I'm the same way. And it's very evident, like you can see and hear it in your voice. You just get very excited about it. So it's very cool. It's very cool. Okay. So let's take that. All right. The core values. And then how does that translate or help you formulate goals for yourself and for your clients?
Well, I mean, it just always comes through, like with our clients in our gym. It's like I said, we always trying to create that experience. So, when we want to create a new program at the gym or offer some new things, it's not just about let's just try this. Let's try, a lot of times people want to try new things, or they're realizing that we need to do something different, and it's really easy to fall in the trap of just doing stuff different to mix things up. But if it's really not playing through your core values, then there's no point in taking those actions. And I've made decisions like that with my company, and usually those decisions don't work out, or they fail, or it's like, why did I do that? Like, because we kind of fall into that trap. We get a little bit of fear going running a business, or you feel like you need to keep up in certain areas, or you feel like you should be doing something differently because maybe other people are doing it, and they can get expensive sometimes, those things. So when we really honed in on our core values, like what's important to us, and we talk through with our team, it makes all of our decisions so much easier. Like all of a sudden, because we're passionate about what we do, like we were talking about the rowing. I mean, I learned how to row last year, and I started doing it, and I just became so passionate about it, and I loved it. What really got me more passionate is I hadn't lifted in a couple months, and I woke up, I had an old herniated disc from like 7 years ago, popped back up, woke up with it, slept funny, turned into a nightmare. So rowing was the only thing I could do. And I started just rowing, and I just fell in love with it, just everything about it. And I became so passionate about it and started getting so good with it that a couple of my staff members were like, I want to do that. And this is so much fun. And we just got this feeling with it that we're like, hey, I think our members would really love this. And all of a sudden, we bought a couple more rowers. And next thing you know, I was getting coaching at the time, and I started doing rowing, just put a rowing class on the schedule, and it filled up. And like it was infectious. People started seeing the changes in me and my body and how excited I was about this, that they wanted to try it. And next thing you know, there's a waiting list. So we said, let's try another one on Saturday mornings. We started doing free intros for our members. Like, doesn't count against your classes. I'll teach an intro. We know rowing etiquette, how to clean the rower, how to everything, how to the drive and the strokes per minute. We just kind of did this huge intro on it. And we had 1 to 2 intros a week that were just filling up people who wanted to learn how to use it correctly. And, it was amazing. And so we put so now we have 3 rowing classes a week on our schedule that are actually, I have to buy more rowers now or add another class. I got to figure out which one's going to be more expensive. And, but they're all filled with waiting lists. I have a rowing class tomorrow morning. I already have 2 or 3 people on the waiting list. We have 8 rowers. So It's super exciting. But that came out of, because we're so passionate and we believe in it and we love it, that it's a successful program at our gym. It wasn't like, hey, that gym down the street's doing rowing. Should we do rowing? It was like, no, we felt it. And it was a part of, we were excited about it. And guess what? Our members were excited about it. And we taught it right. And they wanted more of it. So it's kind of like the whole thing of, it's the, I guess that's the roadmap of how we make decisions. If we're passionate, if we love it, and if we feel it's going to be a great service for what our membership will enjoy, then we'll implement it. But, we've had members come up with ideas, and I'm like, that's great. I love it. But doesn't fit with what we want to do. So we make the decision based on our values.
Love it. That's awesome. And thank you for, taking the time to do those intro classes and stuff and teach proper technique and everything. And that's, what? It's grown very organically.
Yeah, and we don't let people take our rowing class unless you've taken an intro. You have to do the intro classes. You can't just jump in because we don't, So yeah, we're passionate about that.
So I have to ask, right? Because this is something that I'm trying to kind of figure out too a little bit. So how do you get people, or communicate effectively, whether it's through marketing or to members at the gym, that it is worthwhile to go to an intro class, regardless of what, or, rowing, kettlebells, whatever, but take the time to learn the fundamentals? Because it's like, I don't know if it's because, we're social media driven but ADD or whatever it is, but nobody seems to have the patience, anymore to be like, okay, I'm going to do a little bit of an upfront cost and move a little bit slower here at the beginning, but on the back end, I'm going to be much better for it in the long run. Right.
It's I'll say that's one of the hardest things to keep up with. There's a lot of competition in our field right now, and people popping up with, other concepts that aren't really what we do, but they're similar enough to people who don't really know better. And it's been hard because we've caught ourselves kind of like, what do we do here? Like this other gym, the barrier of entry is like half of what we charge, or less than half what we charge for like to sign up fees. But even when a member comes up to us, they have to do a one-on-one training session. They have to purchase the heart rate monitor. They have to. So just to start at our gym, you're looking at hundreds of dollars to do our group training class, like $200 to $300 just for your sign-up fees, because we spend so much time educating and making sure that they're well equipped and doing one-on-one training. And it, some people, it just doesn't work with their budget, or they're like, I can go here and start tomorrow, like right now, and just jump into a class. And that's one of the ththings that we just believe in, and it's just our standard. And could I make a little bit more money doing it differently? Possibly. But that's not why I opened up this gym. That's not why I did it. It was my concept, no one else's concept. And it was my belief system. I want to make money, but I like taking videos of my gym and posting on social media. And if I love it that I take a video of my kettlebell class and my rowing classes. I'm proud to post those things. Yeah, is everything absolutely perfect? No, but it's pretty darn good. I get a smile on my face when I look at that stuff. And our members are kind of used to it. That's what they come to us for. You'd be surprised people who've had other experiences, and they're like, our website talks about our standard, and people come to us because like, I want to learn it the right way, or they've gone through injuries in the past at other gyms, or they've gotten poor instruction. So yeah, that's why we see a lot of our clients, they're 30, 40, 50, 60 years old. A lot of the 20 somethings and may not be as attracted to us. And that's okay. That's okay. So.
No, that's a great point. I think it's definitely, it's a mindset. One, you have to be okay, like financially putting up that investment, because it is, and I've never had an issue like putting up money, because to me it's like quality, right? Like I'm going to get, not only on the back end, I'm going to be better for it, but like the level of instruction is going to be so much higher that like what you learn in 45 minutes to an hour or 75 minutes can just accelerate the learning curve. And, like I think sometimes I think that's lost, or it's not appreciated, I'm not sure, but that's a big, thing that's really important too, to keep in mind for potential audience members out there that are looking at gyms. Like you want to make sure that you're getting really good quality instruction, because it does add up in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We don't want people getting injured. I see things at other places and they do what they do, and I'm clear that that's not what we do, and that I'm okay with that.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So final question we had on the topic list. So do you have benchmarks in place at your gym to help identify like moving a client, say, from a one-on-one setting to small group or classes? This person, this student may be somebody that kind of, say they come in, you get a baseline with the FMS. It's clear they need some individual, like one-on-one attention to get them kind of to a certain level before they can be in a environment or a class situation where it's a little bit faster pace. They're doing a lot more, they're moving a lot more. And that way you don't have to kind of worry about that individual not being able to control their body when they're moving through explosive or dynamic type movements.
Well, I would say that, for the most part, we do our best to accommodate people. I think that the most important part of this is when we're working with, there's some people who walk through our door that will probably never be a true fit for our group training classes. I mean, they may have years of injuries and they're currently injured, and they have tons of like just biomechanical stuff, and we have to be honest with them, that might not be the best fit. We do our best to accommodate people, but that is a real issue, that group training is not going to be for everyone. But for the most part, we do our best to accommodate people. So sometimes people can get away with one or two one-on-one training sessions, and they can go in and learn our methods. Other times it's sessions or more. We've had some people work with us for 3 or 4 months, and then, they can hinge correctly and they can squat correctly. Some people come to us, they can't squat. They have pain on a squat. They've gone to physical therapists. So we're teaching them patterning, and it takes them all of a sudden they don't have pain when they squat. So we teach them how to squat correctly. So, in our classes, we have so many offerings at our gym now, which is great. We have the rowing. We have conditioning classes. We have kettlebell classes. We have barbell club. We have all these we have yoga. So now it's a lot easier for us to say, you know what? Maybe our kettlebell class isn't the best place for you to start. But maybe if you start off with, our conditioning classes, because we're not grinding out heavy reps or doing heavy squats. We do some ropes. We do some rowing. We do some body weight stuff. We do some medicine ball stuff. And maybe there's a swing in the class. And if they can't swing, we can modify the swing and have them learn the hinge deadlift during that time. So we can modify individually for a class for someone that can't do those things. And maybe they start with rowing and our conditioning classes at first to get their body moving, rather than jumping into a class where you're going to be grinding out heavy weight or lots of repetition with the grinds that might not be appropriate. So we can kind of fine tune them through. In our barbell club, it's great because not everyone competes in our powerlifting team, but we have people now that we can get them and program for them individually, and they can go and they can do a simple movement with some dumbbells and goblet squats, and we have a coach there that's watching them on their program. It's a very strength and conditioning environment. So we try to fit people where it's going to be best for them, and we always our instructors will guide down. So if someone can't do a goblet squat, we modify the squat, or instead of modifying the squat in the class, we have them work on, well, why can't they squat? Well, they have poor ankles and hips. So during the squat time, they're stretching their hip flexors and working on ankle mobility, and so they can squat eventually. So we do our best to modify within the class for people. But a lot of times they are doing one-on-one training for 1 month or more with us to make sure they're moving well. And we're okay with that. And if someone, absolutely can't afford it, we do our best to try to make something work for them. But in some cases, it's just we're not the place for them, unfortunately. So, we have to be able to know we're not for everyone as well.
No, I love that. And I love that you're sticking to the values and the standards. I think that's so important. And, I hope more and more people continue to gravitate and appreciate that type of culture, because I think there's a ton of inherent value in taking that path. Like I said, it might be, it's sometimes a little bit, the learning curve's a little bit steeper and a little bit longer, but progress is different for everybody. It's rarely linear.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do our best. We do our best to try and make sure everyone has what they need from us. But we don't chase after a sale just to get a sale. It's like we're talking about the core values, and we teach our staff to sell with values, and we never hard close anyone. It's like, and if we're not the place for someone, we're okay with letting someone walk away and not getting the sale that day. That's fine.
That's awesome. That's great. That's great. Anything else that you want to touch on from any of the topics before we move into rapid fire?
Oh gosh. Let's see here. No, I think, that's about it. And we've covered a lot today. So it's been great so far up to this point. So I'm enjoying the conversation.
Good. Well, me too. Me too. Thank you again for taking the time.
Yep.
Okay. Here we go. Rapid fire time. You're on the hot seat.
Oh gosh, here we go.
All right. So first question, given your current knowledge level and your experiences in your life, if you could go back in time, what advice would you give yourself 10 years ago?
Be patient. Be patient. Focus on the process, and just keep. That's the biggest thing. Be patient. I always want stuff to happen now, and I totally miss the process. So I'm enjoying my process so much more. I have big decisions coming up with my business right now, and I'm actually enjoying the struggle a little bit because I know it's going to pay off. It always does. So I'm really looking at more of curiosity now rather than fear. And so I'm excited. And I wish I could have done that 10 years ago. It would have saved some wrinkles around these eyes.
That's awesome. I love it. Okay. What's your favorite strength training exercise? You got to pick one.
Squat.
Awesome.
Back squat.
All right. Awesome. Okay. How has your training changed today compared to 10 years ago?
I never trained to failure. I never put too much emphasis on just one workout meaning anything. The biggest thing. And always reevaluating, is this working for me in my life right now? And I do that every time. So big time.
That's great. I love that one. That was really good. Okay. Have you ever had a injury? And if so, how did that injury affect your training?
Numerous injuries in my life. The most recent one, I herniated that disc in my neck. I mean, it affected my training tremendously. Amazing. In a great way. I came out of that herniated disc, and now I'm doing endurance sports because of it. Years ago, when I hurt my back and I couldn't move, it made me force myself to learn kettlebells and the FMS. I came across that. And without that, without that back injury, it pushed me into this kettlebell and FMS world that has changed my life. And it's the whole standard of my gym. So again, that injury of my lower back and all the pain I went through has been the most prosperous thing that's ever happened to me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Very cool. Very cool. Okay. What is one thing that high school athletes, all right, or junior athletes should be doing more of to complement their training and their health?
Fundamentals. Focus on the fundamentals. Working on just getting good with the movements and patterning your lifts. That whole trunk stability and mobility stuff. All the stuff we talk about. I train some athletes now, and they can't engage their trunk, and they have so many imbalances in their ankles and hips. And I see their strength coaches doing jumping back squats and power cleans, and the kid can't even do a barbell squat, to parallel. So focusing on patterning the movements correctly and learning that whole mobility, stability, patterning that we get so deeply with the FMS. I wish more young athletes would focus on the fundamentals rather on the intensity. Biggest thing.
Awesome. What's your best tip to improve recovery after a training session?
Eat well and get sleep. Let me say sleep. Get your sleep. Sleep cycle is super important. I go to bed and I wake up the same time every day. Go to bed the same time every night. Wake up Monday through Sunday. Doesn't matter the weekends. I'm up at 4 a.m. every day. I'm in bed at 8:30 every night, and that's my pattern. So it's been wonderful for me. Sleep.
I remember you I think posted on, I think it was Facebook recently about that exact thing, and you said it was a change that you've made and you've committed to, and it's like even on the weekends when you're not at the gym or you're not training, but you still get up at that time, it's made you're setting a rhythm for your body. And you're sticking to it, and it's made a huge difference.
Absolutely. And everyone has a different rhythm. I get up it's tough. I'm up at 4:30 a.m. and I do my thing 4:20 every morning. But, some people, that might not work for them. But find your pattern, what works for you, and stick to your pattern. Mm-hmm. That's what I got to say.
Love it. All right. What's your favorite meal?
Man, my favorite meal. I'd have to go with I don't know. It's that typical American. I don't know. It's hard. I'd have to say pizza, and I don't eat it that often. But I love an awesome slice of pizza. Nothing makes me happier than an awesome slice of pizza, and I probably have it only a few times a year.
Awesome. Okay, what's one book everyone should read?
One book everyone should read. Well, there's a really awesome book I just read, and I think there's two. I'll say if you want a really awesome book that inspires you and just wants you to go to a happy place, I love The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. But in terms of just business and EntreLeadership by Dave Ramsey, great book. If you're a small business owner or want to be, great book.
Awesome. And then this is the final question. I just added this one. This is brand new. Who do you study or have studied in your career to get better? And this could be education in terms of strength and conditioning, small business. So it's kind of a building off of the book question. But, who are people that you kind of follow, whether it's social media or, news sites or articles, whether, again, business, strength and conditioning, any of that area?
So in terms of that whole thing, I'm kind of like a personal growth junkie in a way. I love Tony Robbins. I love a lot of the stuff he does. I've really enjoyed a lot of his videos. I've geeked out on that guy's videos on YouTube for years and just like studied a lot of the stuff he talks about. Been really awesome for me. So sometimes he speaks to people, but for me, he really hit me hard with some of his stuff. In terms of business, I like Dave Ramsey's stuff on finance and just business and the mental approach to having an honest business and running it by values, and I love that. And of course, in terms of the strength and conditioning world, Pavel Tsatsouline has probably been one of the guys that's influenced me the most. Brett Jones, Dan John, those guys have been huge for me in terms of learning the fundamentals and really tapping into what's important. So that's kind of the personal growth all the way through the strength and conditioning stuff. Those guys have been very influential for me.
Awesome. Well, that takes us to the end of this interview, Danny.
Yeah.
So this has been an absolute pleasure. I was really excited and looking forward to this one. So thank you again for taking so much of your time to come on and share your journey and your story and stuff. I think this is a really cool episode that people will get into.
Cool. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And thank you very much for having me on it. It's a big honor. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. My pleasure. Just hang on the line and let me give you a proper goodbye.
All right.
Cool. Thanks for tuning in and listening to this episode of the Leo Training Podcast. If you enjoyed the content, I greatly appreciate it if you would take a moment of your time, head on over to iTunes and drop in a 5-star review. Or please share this episode on your favorite social media network like Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Thanks for tuning in, and be sure to keep an eye out for a brand new episode next week.
Thanks for listening to the Leo Training Podcast. Subscribe and get even more expert training tips at www.leotraining.io.